Great. 7.1. Do we want to have a staff report or just a motion? The hour is getting late.
Which one is 7.1?
Thank you, Amber.
As needed public art consultant services.
Presentation for you, if you want one. I think it's your discretion.
You can make it, if you can make a very abbreviated
Sure.
one.
I will go through this very quickly. To the council members I have not met, I am Amber Evans, Community Development Coordinator, and I manage, as you will see tonight, our public art program, as well as a few other functions not being covered tonight. We have traditionally hired consultants for a number of our public art programs. One of them, Regina Almagar, is here tonight. She'll be presenting a project you've long been waiting for, the Shell Mound Art Project. And we'll get to that right after this one. Actually, one more. We are looking to put out one call or one RFP with 3 calls in it to cover the purchase award, the bus shelter program, and ECCL, or the Emeryville Center of Community Life's art project. This is for the consultant for that project. The next item will be about actually putting a call out for the art at the center. This is for a consultant to help that process, much like on our other capital projects. And I'll just go through quickly what those we look for consultants to do. Help us with the solicitation, get the conceptual design proposals when we have finalists, then work through the design development, final design, fabrication, transportation, installation, and then a celebration and advertising. And as you'll see in the next, we're trying to do that by December of next year. So that's why this is before you tonight, to really get somebody for this project. The other projects can happen a little slower, but we thought that we would save some of the effort and have a more open process by putting them together and casting the wide net. The purchase award consultant scope is really about sort of a tried and true process that we've had, working with the Emeryville Celebration for the Arts and bringing that to a selection panel at their annual show. And the bus shelter public art consulting scope really isn't, we have a program right now through the end of 2016. So this is assuming a program at the end of that period and another phase. And the Public Art Committee has made recommendation that this be a permanent program. Your budget cycles haven't had you make, the council make a specific statement about that, but on the assumption that it would be carried forward, it would be included in the scope. And we wouldn't contract for this work until we were ready to do it, but we would call the names and proposals and get a better sense of budget through this. And again, it's for helping us with the actual dissemination of the RFP, the coordination of that selection panel, summarizing the recommendations, providing the artist materials and the service agreements for the selected artists, so actually getting us draft language to include. And when I say artist materials, I mean like their imagery and their write-ups. And then facilitate the selection of artwork and text layout for the bookmark. So we do a marketing program where we're about to have one come out in the next 2 weeks for phase 3, our latest artists, and this would then be done again. The project budget, as recommended in the staff report, is $75,000, and what this does is provides money for each of the budgets of the annual purchase award and the bus shelter, as well as the ECCL public art project. This would give money, as written in the ordinance. The project itself shouldn't be paying for consulting services, but the art fund and its additional sources of funding. And so this assumes at least $20,000 for that project, as you'll hear in the next item, and it may be more than that. And that it also gives budget for a 4th project. We've brought before you previously a public art master plan that we are seeking consultants right now separately, and capital projects are expected to be produced out of that. Just as now the ECCL project we want to get finished when the center itself opens, we'd like to make sure that when we start a new project, we're able to quickly have a consultant do that selection and work with the PAC to do the scope of work, so that we don't have to write that scope and then start the next project.
Let me ask you a question. At the last City Schools Committee last week, the school district was talking about an NEA grant, which would be a perfect opportunity to have commissioned artwork along what they're calling the community wall.
Right.
Now, what I saw in the packet here doesn't include the community wall.
Right.
So I'm wondering, what's the disconnect, and how come we're not participating in that or going after that grant?
When the...
And maybe Cindy, you
Yeah.
can speak to that.
Do you want to, or you?
Well, yeah, the community canvas was questionable because it was sort of on the value engineering list. And so we decided not to include it in this, but now that it's in the project, then I think we could, like you said, go and have the school district go for some funding for the community canvas.
Well, I just think that should
Right.
that should be included under this ECL public art project.
So let me just clarify. That will be the next discussion item and next point, where we'll talk about the sites that are included that, and I've got a slide and we can talk specifically about that. This is just for the consultant to help with the responses to that RFP. So this is the RFQ for consultants in a variety of project areas, and then we'll talk about the scope of work for the RFP for ECCL.
All right.
The schedule on this is I'm seeking your approval now so that I can get this out and you approving a contract by June, so that the ECCL RFQ lines up with that. That's what's driving my bringing this item right now. Those responses, we're actually talking about May 29th, extending that a little bit because of the lag time we might have on CAFE. And so we will bring this consultant on. We will already have the responses to the RFP. We will start the selection process in June and July, and then move forward. And they'll go do their conceptual design proposals while you're on leave, and then in the fall we'll start to evaluate finalists. What I'm asking for now is approval of the $75,000 allocation and the release of the RFQ for these consulting services.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Amber? Is there a motion on 7.1?
Move to approve.
Second?
Okay, well, that's without exception. Now we go to 7.2.
And this is, as we were starting to dive into the meat of it, this is ECCL. And as Cindy said, I met with her a couple of times as the PAC subcommittee was working to really clarify, and you'll see a slide here, what would be considered eligible sites, and I'll get that in a second, for public art investment that would have actual public access without restriction for school facilities, that would be city-controlled interior spaces or open access exterior spaces. And the goals that you see before you are really developed by the subcommittee and community members that saw ECCL as the community's heart of the city and a meeting place and hub for civic and educational activity. They also, with it right there on the northern border, create a powerful and iconic image for ECCL and the city of Emeryville, provide a visual and psychological connection for residents and pedestrians between the school and public spaces of ECCL. Make it be that those gates aren't sort of a dividing space, but rather that the art helps with the creation and placement. And develop memorable public art pieces to create public appreciation of ECCL site and its unique relationship to the community, establish a sense of entry, and facilitate student, teacher, and community engagement. And I think this seventh one to be clear, this is if there is art proposed on 53rd in the plaza there, then it should meet this component. Not that any piece of art anywhere on the site needs to meet this. Encourage and enhance pedestrian and bicycle access to the site along the proposed Temescal Creek Greenway. And particularly there were concerns about doing anything to acknowledge the creek with riparian habitats and creek experiences, that there be an acknowledgement that we're in a drought and semi-desert environment, and how to think about what you could do with art that doesn't necessarily draw water, but acknowledges what a creek bed in that kind of condition.
What?
And that's, of course, in the context that the creek runs under ECCL. So the eligible sites that are discussed in the RFQ are the 3 plazas that front onto San Pablo Avenue, and the interior space within the Welcome Center, which has a spiraling stairwell and large open windows out onto San Pablo, so it's quite visible, and it operates much like City Hall with open access hours for the public. And I just included this slide to sort of highlight that red line to the left and the yellow arrows to the right, that's what drove sort of our focus on these sites for the investment in art, was that we keep them in the public realm.
And why not do the community wall?
And so I had met with Cindy, and she had said, I'm very concerned that value engineering is going to take this out, and we were concerned we'd be putting an RFP out. People would start to do their work and their proposals around something for the community wall, and it wouldn't be there. And so we didn't propose it. I mean, the subcommittee was very interested in it and would be happy to include that element. Was very interested in the library, and there were questions about access there as well. So this was really focused so that artists could respond with the first element. It's $150,000. There may be other public money in the future for art, but this was perhaps 1 or 2 pieces in the initial installation.
Well, I think the community canvas should be added in, and while they're looking at a NEA grant to fund it, but we also have a public art fund that could fund at least a portion of it. So I think because it's a joint project with the school district, we should commit some public art fund money to the community canvas, as well as whatever the project allocation might be, and whatever the school district might fundraise on its own.
In talking also with the architects and the school district, their thought on the community canvas is it's going to be a changing it's constantly going to be changing, and that they want student engagement to do those panels. And so the architect was going to purchase canvases that the students, so there would be student engagement during that. But they will be changing.
So these would be temporary installations?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Well, we've done temporary public art before.
Absolutely. And the context of the committee talking about this installation was that it's a municipal project. I don't know if the 1.5% from municipal projects has been used for only temporary installations associated with those sites' development. What was I going to say? The changing nature and the actual commission of art from students is a different responding body. So unless the scope was to ask an artist to curate that show, which might be different sets of bodies, I mean, I'm happy to respond to however you'd like to change the scope to reflect the canvas, but I do still see it as a separate project. That was the statement I was going to make, is that the purchase award, as I have come to you before in the past, said we're getting kind of full here in City Hall, and it's exciting to think that ECCL may be a canvas on which the purchase award in future years could go. So similarly, if there's components of the community canvas that might have a piece, or within other interior spaces, that's another way to populate additional art at the site.
Well, how do the rest of the council members feel about the community canvas?
Remind me where the community canvas is in this plan.
It's that diagonal.
Yeah, so if you look
Okay, so it's diagonal,
at
it's
those two
inside the
purple-
courtyard. Okay.
those two, it's actually was proposed, and I don't know if this is changing, as a metal screen with work within that metal screen, and then banner poles attached to it with potential changing elements and that.
Right, yeah, in the common areas, right, inside.
So along the
I guess-
912 entry to the
Yeah, where it
cave.
says commons, so.
The funding streams are so different. One is the building fund, it's a percentage of construction costs, and the other would be some kind of grant money we could qualify for. So I don't know, I the way they have it seems good to me. Also, that to do something that's iconic on the north side, that's going to really say this is a new place, a new thing. If you start to take away from that budget, it's hard to make something that would be of that scale. If that's what you're talking about, taking some of the money and putting it on the common wall, you might be reducing the artwork on the north side if you wanted to have a statement there.
Anybody else here?
I agree with Scott. I think focusing on the plazas and the courtyard rather than dividing up the money. And it sounds like they have a plan and not, and also a plan that's kind of flexible right now with the community canvas. And so I would go along with what Scott has to say.
All right, all right.
As I alluded to, the budget is not to exceed $150,000, and this would include the artist having their design and project management, all the costs of the project, and requiring a minimum contingency of $15,000. Additionally, we're proposing that we reserve $20,000 outside of the artist's control for unexpected expenses, and that might be working with the school district or additional traffic components. But that hasn't been a component of some other projects, and we thought that that might be helpful in the way that we manage the construction. The project schedule, if we release this week, because I go on vacation next week, and make the questions due when I have jury duty, then we'll have applications at the end of the month. And as I said, we can't really move this up much because we won't have the consultant until June, and then bring this to the PAC and go through that development cycle with. It's not that I say December 2016 is the most realistic date from us starting today to get there. This is trying to make this schedule as tight as possible to get a project by then, if ECCL is going to be opening then. And it may slip past that. This is just our best attempt to get there. And with that, if you're comfortable with the project sites, the RFQ was attached in your packet, and I'm seeking your approval to release it. The funds were already allocated in the CIP.
Any discussion?
Seems good to me.
Yep. So we need a motion?
So moved.
Any public comment, Mayor?
Oh,
Any public comment?
I think so, but you never know.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, Ruth.
Perhaps we can ask Disney, Pixar Disney, to help out here, as we've been so good to them over the years.
Okay.
And as I alluded to our consultant Regina Almagar moments ago, she'll be presenting this project that is much anticipated. I hope that you all saw the finalists displayed in the atrium previously, and now you get to hear
Finish 7.2 first.
yeah, sorry.
let us vote.
So
Yeah, sorry.
there's a motion?
Second.
Okay. That's without exception.
Thank you.
All right. 7.3,